you tell us about a successful project that was completed? Judith, would you like to introduce yourself and broadly what the project was?
My name is Judith Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Moceans Center for Independent Living. We are a center of independent living in serving Monmouth and Ocean counties in New Jersey. Our office is located in Long Branch, New Jersey. One of our board members, by the name of Adam Weisberg, a music aficionado who has a lot of background in the entertainment business. He's actually an attorney as well. He made the suggestion that we should have a beach party. And I credit him every time I talk about this because it was a brilliant idea. And one of those edgy little ideas that you don't necessarily believe in the first time you hear it. I was, I think, about 7 or 8 months into my second year, and and I thought he was out of his mind. But we decided to move ahead with it, seeing as one of the things that we wanted to accomplish was to highlight accessibility for public accommodations, particularly the beach area and the boardwalk. The boardwalk is fully accessible. The beach, however, while it does have ramps, wheelchair ramps down to the sand, once you got to the sand, there was nothing there.
So, what would you say you all determined was the need? It was a party, it was accessibility, it was community support. What did you come together around the need of?
So we came together around the need for awareness and community support. We're again, it's a coastal community, so everybody puts down the blue Moby mats, which are nominal at best for anybody who uses a mobility device. And the general complaint was that while it made it possible to bring mobility device onto the sand, it made it impossible to stay there. So there was no real access. There was a gesture towards access, and this is true up and down the Jersey Shore. So the initial impulse was to show that it was possible to improve access in a way that was not tremendously difficult, and that we could indeed facilitate an event on the beach that people using mobility devices, their friends and families, could attend. So the motivation was again, public awareness and the argument for access.
Awesome. And who were the major stakeholders involved in finding this need and deciding on a solution and implementing it?
It was a pretty informal process here. We didn't do a lot of analytical work. We didn't solicit a lot of opinions. A lot of it was informal and really based in our own community here. 50% of our staff are people with disabilities, of whom several are wheelchair users, and they made it very clear that getting down to the beach was impossible.
So we was a lot of Motion staff, and those people have lived experience in the community.
That is correct. We got some additional input from other CILs, again, on a very informal basis, from folks who are wheelchair users, who said that they had never been able to access the beach. So that was motivating. The facilities and the city of Long Branch, as a stakeholder, was a phenomenal partner, it turned out, because they have a longstanding commitment to people with disabilities, and their disability rights, or not disability rights, but their disabilities committee of the city council was very helpful in offering thoughts around what could be done and how it could be done. And the DPW was with us 100%. The Department of Recreation and the DPW were definitely right there on board. They offered to, at the end of the season, take about a half a dozen, maybe 10 Moby mats and lay them together so that they essentially formed an accessible platform, an accessible area on the beach. And they did all this for free, kind of as an experiment. I was actually terrified that we were going to end up having to call the fire department and, for people who were sunk in the sand. But they were terrific partners.
So in implementing, what was the process, or what were the steps that you took in terms of paperwork or logistics or action or connecting people?
What was really interesting about this was that, what would ordinarily in other places be a much more formalized process, because the city of Long Grass has this standing commitment to people with disabilities. It was very informal and interpersonal. We met with the head of the DPW, who is a person with disabilities himself. Obviously, he doesn't use mobility devices, but because he understands what it's like to have a disability, he was 100% in. And once the Department of Recreation signed off on our ability, and again, this was a personal relationship. I knew the person who ran the department, and they knew our work very well. We just talked it through and came up with a plan of what to do and how to do it. We did a little design work together, which the folks at DPW amended, and then motion staff went down and tried it out and gave some feedback on placement and that sort of thing. And our board member who made the initial suggestion happened to have run a small club in the area, so he was connected to a bunch of musicians, and he organized the musicians. We came up with a little bit of unrestricted funding to pay the musicians. The whole thing, I think, cost us maybe $800, because DPW was there to provide us with the manpower to put everything down, and the city of Long Branch provided us with a sound system. So basically, it was all of the materials they had.
How did you end up building the relationship that you had with the folks on the Long Branch City Council before this project?
One of our employees, Stan, okay?
Mhm.
Stan is the source of all good things. I'm going to make a T-shirt that says that. Uh, but Stan had a long-standing relationship with the disabilities subcommittee of the city council. The disability subcommittee has been around for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before I showed up. So we already had a place on the council, or we had already had a voice in the council. The DPW, again, a long-standing relationship law that predated me. We had just never used it in this way.
That's wonderful. So you all came together, you created the environment, and then there was a live event and the musicians played. What was the reception of the event? How did it go?
I can't remember the name of the young woman. She works at one of the centers for independent living up in Monmouth County. But she came down to the beach. She's a 100% wheelchair user, and the squeal of joy that just lit up the place. We do have supported housing in the area. Those folks came down, and it was a party. The initial very joyful event itself. Like I said, I was terrified the whole time because I didn't know how long you could have people rolling around on Moby mats before they got stuck. We did find that people with manual wheelchairs had a much more difficult time, but the point is that it was extremely well received in the short run. In the longer run, the mayor and several members of the city council came down to the event. And while the event was going on, they had a little confab there and decided that what they wanted to do was to create a more durable platform for people with disabilities to come and enjoy the beach. So, as a direct result of this event, they went out and did fundraising on their own and bought 200 square yards of hard deck from a vendor that basically specializes in this sort of thing. Basically, they created a seasonal but permanent seasonal beach for people with disabilities. In year two, or year one was when we threw the Moby mats down there. Year two was when they bought the hard decking, and they did we still have the pictures. They did a grand opening. It was great. We had folks from the county government showed up and all of that. In year three, oh, they bought us palm trees too. It was great. In year three, they decided that that went so well that they made a second additional deck, right? In year four, we ended up convincing the town of Manasquan, this just at the start of the pandemic, to do the same thing. They have an accessible playground right on the beach, and we convinced the Elks because of the success of the Long Branch project. We worked with the Manasquan Elks to create the same thing at Manasquan. The pandemic put the brakes on the project, and this actually we had 2 years during the pandemic where we could have and weren't able to because of the weather. This is going to be our first year back doing the beach bash, and then next year we're looking to find a new partner to promote this to again.
What a cool
Yeah.
evolution to have that to have the small direct informal action spawn so much larger and larger and then more and more official actions. What did you learn from the process, from the project, from the party?
The first thing I learned was not to take crazy ideas as crazy, because I thought the guy was out of his mind when he said we should have a beach party, and he was totally right. And to look beyond the initial vision of or the initial challenges, and see the opportunity there. The second thing that I think we learned was how willing people are to support a access project that they can really wrap their heads around. I didn't actually include all of the detail on this because in year two, when Long Branch bought the hard decking, they also went and they already had a couple of floating chairs for people who could transfer out of wheelchairs. And they went out and bought more of them. During year two and in the run up to year three, what we got was a lot of press coverage about people who heard about the beach and came down to the beach for the first time in their lives, giving Long Branch a taste of the vision. They went all in on true accessibility, and I think giving people that opportunity really gives them something that they can hang on to. It's like you never know what to do about somebody else's tough times, but if you can hold on to one small piece of accessibility that people truly understand and appreciate, they can be very generous. We want to create local change that broaden out, that have broader impacts. So something like the Beach Bash, while the original concept is, well, let's go have a beach party. And of course, who doesn't love a beach party? When we talk to other stakeholders and potential partners, we really use it as a calling card that shows that we're interested in doing good in the local community.
I think that's a great summary.
If you feel like giving us like just a minute of talking about like blind spots people have about accessibility for folks with mobility issues or public spaces and accessibility. If you want to just give me like a little bit of like what it's like to like look at a public space and realize people haven't considered what accessibility needs there are for people.
So when it comes to access, very often people think that if there's a curb cut, everything is great. When people see public accommodations like the boardwalks along the Jersey Shore, and prior to Sandy, a lot of the boardwalks really weren't very accessible. But they figure if there's a point of access every now and then, that makes the beach accessible. But what it really means for people with disabilities is they can get close to the beach, but never on it. And that's really true for a lot of public access. We often see that people create some form of access without considering all of the access. We very often see places that look accessible, but they have a small step up, which for a wheelchair user might as well be a 6-foot wall. For somebody who has, a walker, or even, wheelchairs, walkers, scooters, canes, and crutches. These sorts of things don't necessarily get full consideration when people talk about access. One of my favorite, we do site visits very often to do ADA compliance and talk about full accessibility. One of my favorite pictures is one of our employees sitting in front of a sign that said, a wheelchair access sign in front of a staircase. So obviously people don't think as fully as you wish they would about what access really means. We should encourage people to consider the full range of access. The entire experience should be available to people who use mobility devices.
The last thing that I think would be really helpful, because you started to talk about the relationship between Long Branch City Council and like the pre-existing relationship with Stan. And I'm wondering if it might be possible for you to take a second and maybe talk about, like how Stan's ability to build relationship with service providers and city folks and like all of that maybe is like one of the like core, like a good template for like neighbor aids in general, and like the idea of community relationship building over time and how it bears fruit eventually. Like just those are some of the things that would be good to get in your voice.
But one of the greatest gifts that Motions has is in a couple of our folks, and their ability to create strong relationships, particularly Stanley Soden, who's been with us for over 30 years. And Stan does not have a lot of academic credentials. He doesn't come with a lot of certifications, and though he has had some training, I think the greatest skill and the highest value work that he does is in building strong and supportive relationships, both for Motions and for the disabilities community. Um, Stan has, we call him the informal mayor of Long Branch because he seems to know everyone. And he has not only a winning personality, which is always great, but Stan has a way of understanding and refining personal relationships in ways that benefit the disabilities community as a whole. He's the guy who tools around Long Branch, calling up the DPW to fix potholes, not necessarily because he's going to roll into them, but because they're unsafe. So he has that sense of his own community's sense of needs, but he also has that sense of broader community. And I think that his greatest ability, I personally call him the relationship guru, is to build relationships that. So in the course of Stan's longevity with the agency, he's also created some foundational relationships with the city of Long Branch, including sitting on the Disabilities Council. And so the fact that he not only sat on the council, but he also became very familiar and continues to be very active in interacting with the DPW, with the Department of Recreation, with the mayor's office. No matter who the mayor is, by the way, it really doesn't matter. Stan has fostered this broad relationship. Again, he is there to advocate for the community no matter what, and that really did a lot to facilitate our ability to pull off the beach bash. I think if we had just walked up to the DPW and said, "Hey, we'd like to do this," they might have been interested, but it was really Stan's longstanding involvement in the community that made it possible.